The Dursleys suck, and Harry Potter is not living his best life. Let's talk about that. What's up, what's up? John here. Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell notification so you get the notifications. And if you like the video, leave me a message. Last we left Harry, he was a prisoner in his own room. He's having nightmares and he sees a face in his window. That leads us to chapter 3. The Burrow. Whose face does Harry see in the window? None other than his good friend, Ron Weasley.
Excellent!
But Ron's not by himself. He brought his brothers, Ron and Fred. Ron and Fred? Fred and George. Why do I do this? But Ron, being the great friend that he is, has managed to steal his dad's enchanted car and fly away.
Hi, Harry. Ron.
Of course, he had Ron and Fred and George with him. And of course, they're always willing to get into some kind of mess. In the movie, the way this scene plays out, it's as if they've done this before. They've got a rope with a hook on it, and they know exactly what to do. They put that hook on the bars, and they just come right out of the wall. They have no qualms at all with vandalism, burglary, whatever else crimes they have committed in this. But even as I say that, I think to myself, those crimes that they've committed have nothing on the crimes that Vernon Dursley has committed. Child abuse, child neglect, imprisonment. Oh, I'm sure there's a few others in there. Wow, he's facing some hefty prison time. But I really like in the book how the twins put the car in park. And it just hovers there, and they crawl out of the car through the window into Harry's room, and they pick the lock on his door. And they know, hey, we're not going to use some magic. We're going to cause some trouble, but we're not going to cause that kind of trouble. So they pick the lock manually, as a nasty muggle would do it. Ugh. Nasty things. And then they manage to go down the steps. They pick the lock for the door under the steps. They get Harry's trunk and his broom and all of that because Vernon had locked it all up. And then they proceed to bring his stuff upstairs, drag it through the window, put it in the car, and all of this while they're trying to be as quiet as possible. Because Vernon and Horseface Petunia are sleeping in the room right next door. At least I think it's right next door. I don't know. It could be down the hall. I don't know. Somebody tell me, does anyone have a floor plan of the Dursleys' house? If so, let's see it. Let's check it out. I'd like to see the schematics on that and see how that layout is. You know, what's the architecture look like? And with all of this going on, it's none of that noise that wakes up Vernon. It's the owl. It's Hedwig. Hedwig is the one that wakes up Vernon because Harry is halfway out the window and Hedwig's like, yeah, forgot me over here. He's like, oh yeah, forgot. And then Vernon comes in. One thing, a little minor difference between the book and the movie. I just want to throw it out there because we are comparing the two. In the book, the door is already unlocked and I think it may be open. I think the door may be open because it says Vernon appears in the doorway. In the movie, we see that Vernon is fumbling with the keys, trying to unlock all those locks that he's had put on this door. But when Vernon sees what's going on, he instantly jumps into action and he tries to hold Harry in the window. He ends up getting away in the book. In the movie, Vernon falls out of the window into the bushes, and a man his size taking a fall like that, that's going to be a trip to the ER, because that doesn't look good. But at this point, Ron and Fred and George and Harry and Hedwig, they're flying away. Harry is so happy. In the book, he shouts out the window, "See you next summer." Once he gets in the car, he is hit with a barrage of questions from Ron. Ron is wondering why he hasn't heard from his friend. And that's when we find out that Ron has been sending letters all summer, trying to invite Harry down to spend the summer with him. But because of Dobby, Harry has received none of those letters.
Dobby! Stop! Dobby! Dobby!
But Harry goes on to explain to Ron and the twins about Dobby and how he encountered him, and he's taken all the letters and he hasn't heard from anybody. And then they start to try to put the pieces together. Who does Dobby belong to? And of course, their thoughts automatically go to Draco Malfoy.
Potter.
Because Ron asks Harry, who do you have as an enemy at Hogwarts? Oh, of course, Draco Malfoy. Draco hates everybody except those he can manipulate, and everyone who he can't manipulate in turn pretty much hates him too. So, but that's the cost of being a bully. Don't be a bully, kids. But after Harry tells them about Dobby, Fred and George, they both say that Dobby sounds pretty fishy. I would even go as far as to say Dobby is a very shady character. At this point in the movies, after my first time watching, I had zero trust for Dobby. He just seems like his motives may not be in the best interest of Harry, or for anyone for that matter.
Dobby! Dobby! Dobby, please stop!
At this point in the book, I think it's Ron who describes Draco Malfoy as having the best of everything. And I can't help thinking he really doesn't have the best family life. He doesn't have the best manners. He doesn't have the best moral compass, maybe. He just seems like a really wretched heifer, is the best way to put it. Ron goes on to explain house elves to Harry, saying that the house elves have their own kind of magic that they can usually use with their owner's permission. I can't help thinking of that keyword, usually. Usually they can use their magic without their owner's permission. But at this point, Dobby's gone behind his owner's backs. After Harry explains to Ron about the letters, Ron goes, "Oh, I thought it was Errol." This poor old owl has lived its life and it is now struggling.
Oh, fetch it, will you, Percy, please?
I think it's time for Errol to retire. He's done his job. Let's move on. So after they touch down at the Burrow, we are introduced to my favorite Wizarding World family, the Weasleys. This is the point in the book where we get a good introduction to Molly and Arthur Weasley. We saw Molly in the previous story. We saw her briefly at King's Cross getting the kids to platform 9 3/4. That's it. But now we get a good, thorough introduction. We get to see who Molly is really. And I stand by my comment. Molly Weasley is a national treasure. At this point of the story, she is angry at her sons for what they've done, taking the car, flying it out. She confronts the twins, confronts Ron. She's angry. She tells them, "What is wrong with you? You could have been hurt. You could have been killed. You could cost your dad his job." And she says she's never had these kind of issues with Bill or Fred or Percy. Oh, Percy. Not everyone can be as perfect as Percy. But when she gets to Harry, she totally changes her tone. She is not the least bit angry at Harry. She treats Harry like one of her own sons. And we see that in the previous story when she sent Harry Christmas gifts and even made him one of the Weasley family Christmas sweaters.
What are you wearing?
Oh, Mum made it. Looks like you got one too.
I've got presents.
Harry is in. He is in this family. And I think that is totally awesome. How they just take Harry in as one of their own. And he is part of this family. We also see that Molly has a sweet spot for Gilderoy Lockhart.
Well, that's not nice.
She has a thing for this guy, and she has all of his books, and she cannot wait to see him later. All right, moving on from Molly, we get introduced in this chapter to Arthur Weasley. And I just want to talk about Arthur Weasley for a minute because he is a pretty peculiar guy. He works in the Ministry of Magic for the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts division. Arthur has a fascination with Muggle items, Muggle technology, anything that has to do with the Muggle way of life. He wants to know all about it.
Dad works in the Ministry of Magic, in the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office. Dad loves Muggles. Thinks they're fascinating.
He even loves Muggle people. Arthur likes to take Muggle items and enchant them to make them do things that they normally wouldn't do. Take his car, for instance. He took a car, took it apart to tell Molly that he wanted to see how it worked. Yeah, right. What he actually did was enchant it to make it fly and make it extra roomy so the entire family and all their luggage could fit into it. And we see that when they start packing their bags to head to Hogwarts. They have so much room in this car. It's unbelievable. We find out after Molly confronts Arthur about the car that Arthur actually wrote a loophole in the law regarding that, saying that somebody would be well within their rights as long as they didn't intend to use magic while they're enchanting something. And that makes me think, he intentionally wrote in a loophole for his own personal gain. That's a little sketchy, Arthur Weasley.
Your sons flew that enchanted car of yours to Surrey and back last night.
Did you really? How'd it go?
But we go on to see that Arthur has an interest in Harry because he wants to find out more about the Muggle world. Harry's been in the Muggle world for the last 11 years, and Arthur wants to know more about it. At one point, he's asking Harry how plugs work, how does the postal service work. He just has this fascination with the Muggle way of life.
Harry, you must know all about Muggles. Tell me, what exactly is the function of a rubber duck?
This leads us into chapter 4. What is at Flourish and Blotts? At the beginning of chapter 4, we see that Harry has spent a week, maybe 2, with the Weasleys at this point. Like I said, he's become a part of the family. But the book says that Harry is trying to adjust to their way of life, this wizarding world family dynamic. Things are completely different at the Weasleys than they are at the Dursleys. Things are much more rigid and structured at the Dursleys. Everything has to be just right. And at the Weasleys, nothing's perfect. They kind of just take it as it is. There's like a gremlin or something in the attic that bangs on the pipes. And then there's random explosions coming from Fred and George's room. And all of this is thought to be normal.
It's not much, but it's home. I think it's brilliant.
One morning, Errol brings in the letters, and oh man, poor Errol. Oh, Errol smacked right into that window. Is Errol okay? Hey, Percy, can you check on Errol?
He's always doing that.
Oh, look, it's our Hogwarts letters.
But Errol brings the letters, and of course Harry gets his letter delivered to the Weasleys. Nothing gets past Dumbledore. He knows where Harry is. And they get all of their book requirements for the coming year. And Harry and Ron, they're second years. So they have some different books to buy. And they've got a long list of books. Some of the books, let's see. The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 2 by Miranda Goshawk. Followed by Break with a Banshee by Gilderoy Lockhart. Gadding with Ghouls by Gilderoy Lockhart. Holidays with Hags by Gilderoy Lockhart. Travels with Trolls by Gilderoy Lockhart. Voyages with Vampires by Gilderoy Lockhart. Wanderings with Werewolves by Gilderoy Lockhart. And Ear with the Yeti by none other than Gilderoy freaking Lockhart. Who's writing the names of your books, Gilderoy?
Mum fancies here.
Make way there, please!
Gilderoy Lockhart is so full of himself. He is nothing but a pretentious jerk. He's self-centered in every way imaginable. Gilderoy Lockhart is the kind of fella that only cares about himself and only pretends to care about other people if it can benefit him and only cares about other people if it can benefit him in any way. Oh, but Molly Weasley loves her some Gilderoy Lockhart, let me tell you. We also see that Percy has been shut up in his room all summer. He only comes out for meals, and he's been writing a lot more letters than normal. At this point, I don't know what this means, because I haven't read these stories yet. But I've been told there's more to Percy in the books than in the movies. So I'm eager to see where this road leads Percy, because there's some stuff going on that he's described as not really being himself. In this chapter, we also get to see more of Ginny Weasley. Now, we know Ginny Weasley has a thing for this charming, heroic Harry Potter. When he comes in the room, she squeals, she drops things. She's always dropping things. It makes me wonder, what is Harry doing to the force of gravity when he walks into the room with Ginny Weasley? It's as if gravity is increasing. Very odd. Ginny is infatuated with Harry. Anytime he walks in the room, she gets very clumsy, tends to drop things and squeal when she sees Harry. And what else can be said? We know where this goes. We'll talk more about it later. One thing that's not in the movie that I would have liked to have seen is when Ron and Harry go outside to de-gnome the garden. I would have loved to have seen Ron and Harry sling these gnomes up into the air, just twirling them around and throwing them. That would have been great to see. But I do get to imagine it, and in my head when I imagine it, it's phenomenal. At one point, Arthur mentions the name Mundungus Fletcher. Did I get it right? Yes, Mundungus Fletcher. He was doing something with work, and he said Mundungus Fletcher tried to enchant him with something, tried to do something to him. And that got me thinking, who is Mundungus Fletcher? I want to know more about this guy. Let's take a look. Another part of this story that I find really interesting is the use of Floo powder. The Weasleys travel using Floo powder, and we get to see this firsthand. Of course, Harry has never done this before, so he gets a lesson from the Weasleys on how he needs to travel using Floo powder. And one thing that Molly says is you have to say your destination clearly. And he gets a lot of other explanations. Harry gets a mouth full of ash and doesn't say his destination clearly.
Diagon Alley.
What did he say, dear?
Diagon Alley.
I thought he did.
And he goes somewhere where he's not supposed to. And Ron says, oh, Harry has never traveled with Floo powder before. And he gets asked, how did you go to Diagon Alley last year to get your supplies? And Harry explains that he went underground with Hagrid. And at that point, Arthur Weasley gets excited and he asks Harry, did you see any escapatars? And I was like, what's an escapatar? I've never heard of this. So I'm also interested to find out what an escapatar is. So we see Harry come out of the fireplace in an old, dimly lit, sketchy looking shop. And it's after Harry looks around that he realizes he's not in Diagon Alley. He is in Nocturn Alley. And of course, who else would Harry run into in Nocturn Alley than Draco and Father of the Year, Lucius Malfoy, have to walk into this shop that Harry just happens to be in. So Harry hides, and we get to see this father-son dynamic between Lucius and Draco play out. Of course, Draco, the whole time, he's in the shop. He's touching things, saying, I want this, I want that. Dad, you said you were going to get me a gift. You said you were going to get me something.
Don't touch anything, Draco.
Yes, Father.
When he's not asking for something, he's bad-mouthing Harry. And even Draco's dad is saying, Draco, you are foolish to badmouth Harry Potter, because in this world, he is looked upon as a hero. So as much as Draco hates Harry, even Lucius says, you need to stop this because people view him as a hero. It's at this point of the story that Lucius mentions this Muggle Protection Act that this blasted Arthur Weasley must be backing up. I want to hear more about this Muggle Protection Act because Arthur Weasley, he really has a heart for Muggles. So I have no doubt that he's behind this act. And it just shows you just how hateful Lucius is toward Muggles. He views only people with true magic blood, these pure bloods, as valuable people. He says if you're a Muggle or if you're a mudblood, then you have no value, at least according to Lucius Malfoy. But after Draco and his dad, Father of the Year, Lucius Malfoy, leave the shop, Harry leaves as well, and that's when he realizes he is in a very sketchy place. Nocturn Alley is not a place you want to find yourself. But luckily, just before Harry gets murdered and mutilated...
Not lost, are you, my dear?
I'm fine, thank you. I was just...
He encounters Hagrid, and Hagrid saves him.
No, please.
Harry!
Hagrid saves him, leads him to Diagon Alley, where he needs to be, and that's where, thankfully, he quickly meets up with the Weasleys again, and Molly Weasley is just frantic. Didn't know where Harry was, and then she goes and starts cleaning him off because they're just covered in soot from the flu powder travels. And in the movie, you can see all the Weasleys, especially Ginny, her face is all dirty, and that makes me wonder, if you get filthy like this from traveling using flu powder, why do you do that? Everywhere you go, you're filthy. But during this point, we get to see the other 1/3 of this trio, Hermione Granger. Yes, Hermione's there in Diagon Alley buying her supplies, and she has her parents with her.
Harry! Hagrid!
Hello, Hermione.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you too.
It's not every day that Muggle parents take their wizarding kids to Diagon Alley to get supplies. So then we have this Muggle world meets the wizarding world, and it's interacting, and Arthur Weasley is eating it up. He takes Hermione's parents to a pub to get a drink and just talk about Muggle life and Muggle technology. He is loving this. So they split up. Arthur goes with Hermione's parents. Ron, Harry, and Hermione, they go to get ice cream because now Harry's gone to the bank. He's got some money. Now Molly has cleaned out the Weasleys' box, but Harry still has a mountain of gold at his disposal. And this makes Harry pretty self-conscious because he knows that the Weasleys don't have a lot. And here he is. He's got more than he will probably ever need, and he's trying to hide it. Something else that you don't see in the movie but is in the book at this point, is while everyone's separated, of course, Fred and George go to a joke shop and they are buying no heat fireworks. I think this is a great detail of the book, and it makes me wonder, are these the fireworks that they used at Hogwarts later on in the story? We also get to see Percy is at, I think it's a used bookstore, and he gets a book called Prefects Who Gained Power, a study of Hogwarts prefects and their later careers. This is a perfect book for Percy. He is just so wound up in being a prefect. Even when his brothers make fun of him, he knows what he wants to do in life, and I guess that's it. So after everyone gets back together, they go to Flourish and Blotts, where they see none other than Gilderoy Lockhart signing books, meeting people, flashing that smile. He's so full of himself. But there he is, Gilderoy Lockhart. There's not much to this guy. What you see is what you get. But he's there signing books. And the Weasleys and Harry walk in. And he sees Harry. And he immediately takes the opportunity to toot his own horn. He brings Harry up to the table where he's signing books and gets a photo with him. Oh, we're going to be on the front page of the newspaper. And
nice big smile, Harry. Together you and I rate the front page.
it's just sickening. He gives Harry free books, trying to promote himself, and Gilderoy takes the opportunity to make this grand announcement that he's going to be the next professor for defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts. And Gilderoy is the only one that cares. But this old time Molly is eating this up. She loves her some Gilderoy. And of course, as Harry's trying to leave, he gets hassled by Draco.
Bet you loved that, didn't you, Potter?
Leave him alone.
Oh, look, Potter.
And as if that's not enough, the entire Weasley family has to be stopped and hassled by Lucius.
Vacant expressions.
Tatty.
Second-hand book. You must be at the Weasleys.
Lucius is such a jerk. He's a jerk to everybody, even his own son. And he's especially a jerk to Arthur Weasley.
What's the use in being a disgrace to the name of wizard if they don't even pay you well for it?
Arthur Weasley and Lucius Malfoy are on opposite ends of the spectrum.
We have a very different idea about what disgraces the name of wizard, Malfoy.
Clearly.
You have Arthur on one side that works for the Ministry of Magic. He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to raise his family, trying to make a living, trying to make a difference in the wizarding world, trying to make it a better world. And then you got Lucius, that he's only out for himself. He will stab you in the back and then stab you in the heart. But we got a back and forth between Arthur and Lucius. And one thing that's in the book that's not in the movie is Lucius and Arthur get into a fist fight. Yes, in the middle of Flourish and Blotts, Arthur Weasley throws down with Lucius Malfoy. And I even think Arthur punches Lucius right in the eye. I think that's what happened. But Hagrid ends up having to come in and separate Lucius and Arthur. And even Hagrid tells Arthur, God, why did you have to do that? You can't listen to that guy. The Malfoys are nothing but bad news. You can't let them do that to you. And of course, Gilderoy Lockhart's in the back, looking at what's going on and talking to the newspaper columnist saying, oh, you got to add that into the story. Add that in. It'll make me look great. Once again, Gilderoy Lockhart out to promote himself. But the Weasleys finished their shopping. Arthur's got to go home and ice his face after getting punched in the nose by Lucius. And that's pretty much chapter 4. But that's it for this time around. Thanks a lot for joining me. Like I said, if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, please do it. Hit the notification. Leave me a comment. I love hearing your comments. And until next time.